Hi, this is Yüksel Günal again. In this session, we're going to run the application we just developed in the previous video lecture. And we're going to run it in debug mode so that you can see how debugging can be used. In fact, I'll start by just running it simply with the run mode, not debug mode, just so we can test the program. So I'm running it in the emulator, the virtual device. Let me just type in my user ID and password as to be expected. Click login. It says logged in successfully. Now, see what happens when I click the back button. As you expected, it goes back to the previous activity, and that's how activities work. If you have multiple activities, one calling the other or one starting the other, what happens is that the started activity is stacked upon the pre-calling activity. And when you place the back button, the started activity is removed off the top of the stack, and the calling activity is shown. That's the Android flow. That's how Android works. Now, let me introduce an error. Again, let's say I put in, say, yahoo.com, and let's say I introduce a login that my application does not know about. Let's click login. It says login failed. Now let's go back, gmail.com, correct login ID. Now let me type the password as password, not using 0 as I designed it in my application, but using the letter O. Now this should fail. Okay, login failed because I typed in password with O rather than 0. Now the question is, since if you're testing this program and you're not seeing the password, you might be surprised why this has failed. Maybe perhaps you're thinking you typed it correctly. What do? Well, one thing you can do is you can print out what's coming here in the login verification demo activity. You can see what's coming in as the password. But a more elegant way of testing your programs or debugging your programs, looking for problems, is to start it in debug mode and see this bug icon. See, it looks like a bug. Okay, you start your program in debug mode rather than play. This is run, this is debug. Let's do that. And let's run it in the emulator. Now, this is going to take some time. And let me show you let me get this out of the view first. And let's look at the console. It's getting connected. So what happens is that when you start the application in debug mode, it actually, the debugger connects to the device through a port, and in this case it's 8621, and you can actually pause the execution. You can run the program step by step, and the way to pause it is to use breakpoints. Let's just have the Java programs. Okay. By the way, I now have the application running in debug mode, I believe. Let me just test to see whether it's in debug mode or not. Now, see this method on click. This is the method that gets executed when a user clicks on the login button. Let's put a breakpoint. A breakpoint is where you want to pause the execution. To do that, you see this gray area here where I have the line numbers. Let's just click right here, intent, because right here, I'll know what the login is. I know what the password is. To put the breakpoint, you just click there. And you see there's this red button. And if you hover over it, it says suspend the thread. Okay, suspends the thread. Now let's run the application. Okay, run the application. Okay. See, when I clicked on the login, the execution stopped right here. It's not doing anything. And you see this is blinking, which means something happened in the editor. You see it stop right on this line. Let me get this out of the view. Okay. because now I need to interact with the debugger. Um, See what happens. In the debug view, you have the frames, the execution stack, okay? You can actually see what happened. So that's how the program started. These are what got called by Android. Okay, these are all Android calls. Finally, you get to onClick. Okay, the variables section shows you the values of the variables that have been set. Now, some of these are kind of cryptic, hard to decipher because you have the login uh, text view UI element, and these are the addresses, etc. But some of them are readable, like this one. This is character sequence. See login character sequence. It says yuxel.gunal@gmail.com. And you can see that here it's password, pass WORD rather than 0. Now, when you see this, you know immediately that you actually, when you were testing this, you were typing the incorrect password. Now, let's not worry about this, but see how we can use the debugger. Let's say you wanna trace this further. What you can do, you can just click on this, and then the execution will continue. But if you don't have any other breakpoint, then the execution will just continue, and then will stop wherever it needs to stop. But let's put another breakpoint here, just to see whether we're passing the um, okay, whether we're passing the values correctly. See, this is the other activity, second activity. And remember that we're passing to that activity the values using the intent object. And let's see if that's successful. Should be, but let's just verify. So I put another breakpoint here. Now, before I go there, let's see how we can start the execution. So if I click on this, the next time it will stop is here, right here. But I won't do that. Instead, what I'll do, I'll execute this step by step. I'll execute the application step by step. To do that, you see these widgets. Um, Hover over here. It says step over. This says step into. The difference is that if you click on this, you'll move to line 47, not 45 or 46, because 45 is blank, 46 is comment, 47 is something to be executed. So let's click on this. See, we move to the next line. Now click again, you move to the next line. Now, if I click on this again, it's going to execute start activity. Okay, it's gonna go to start activity. Now, if I just click on step over, it will just execute the start activity. But I want to see what's happening inside there, so I'll click into it. So this, now I'm getting into actual Android code. See, this is not the code I wrote, but activity, start activity. This is the activity class, so we're going there. You can click, step into it, you can see more of the Android code. So here we're actually going into some deep waters. This is the Android stuff. Of course, this is not something we can change, but it's interesting to see how debugging works and also how much you can do with debugging. So let's just step over. And actually, what I'll do, and then this steps out. When you click on this, it will just get out of this method. But here, what I'll do now, since we saw how these buttons work, I'll just click Resume Program. The question is, where will it stop or pause next? Well, in the next bullet point, breakpoint I have. So let's click on that. See, that was my next breakpoint. I can put another breakpoint here. Just click on it, and you have a breakpoint. If you click once more, the breakpoint will disappear, okay? So let's look at the contents of the variables. See, login character sequence, log password character sequence. So those values were passed by the intent object correctly. Now, again, you can step over it. Now, see what happened. This comparison failed, so you went to the else block. So now you can say here that, well, so this password or login ID was not successful, because you can clearly see that if failed, you move to the else. Now, next again, okay, again, and then finally you can say run. And then let me bring the virtual device back to the view. Login failed. Okay, that's how debugging works. I will do more examples, but I would strongly urge you to use debugging mode and put breakpoints and see how the program executes. It's very useful to understand actual flow of the programs.